Hey guys, how's it going? Hope all is good in your part of the world. And today on the Time Bomb channel, we are paying homage to Lawrence of Arabia with the Christopher Ward C65 Dune. If you are new to the channel, please do consider subscribing, liking, etc. if you are a fan of the Risk Candy. And a huge welcome to all of those who have been subscribing of late. Channel's growing really well, so massive thank you to you, and you are very welcome indeed. Cracking one of these bamboo boxes is always a very pleasant part of any day, and voila, here is our watch for today, and you can't tell me that doesn't look classy. Kind of makes me want to grab my dish dash and sandals, but yeah, let's just have a quick once over there, and then I'm just going to pause and zoom in. Okay, so released not that long ago from the series. It was actually the bronze version of these that seemed to be getting all the love and the attention. But to me, this white sand version, as it's called, referred to, is the dark horse of the series, and I'm so glad that they were able to share it with me for review. I mean, again, from all my watches from Christopher Ward, have been lent to me by them. So massive thanks again, guys, for the generosity in sharing with us, the smaller channels on the mighty tube. It's not a watch that I would have normally gravitated towards, primarily due to the size specs as they are listed. But looking through the photos from the release of this one, it just jumped out at me like a little thorny devil. There's just something about that sand and mixture of dial colours, etc., that had me oozing, gentlemanly classy watch. Many refer to these as field watches, but personally, I wouldn't call it a field watch. It's to me, when I think of field watches, I think more of those with a slightly more militaristic vibe, perhaps those that you might see, say, on a Hamilton Khaki, Citizen Tufts, the CWCs, etc. This one has a slightly dressier feel to me. For example, within the series, look at this blue dialer. I mean, that sunburst blue is pure classy dress watch to my eyes. Maybe it's a little bit like classifying music. Personally, I hated it massively when someone decided that they needed to rebrand heavy metal as core, new core, soft core, death core, blah blah core, etc. Maybe we can just appreciate this watch for what it is and wear it whenever we want, listening to whatever we want without all the sticky labels. Sitting within their Aquitaine range, and based on the now very familiar and aptly named light catcher case body, you can flip it on its side and you can absolutely see why. The key speckage on this is that they are then 38 mils across the dial. You're going to need to add another couple of mils in for that crown. It's quite substantial. It's more substantial perhaps than crowns you would find on similar 38 mil watches. But to me, I personally like the size of it because it is less faffy, and nobody likes a faffy crown. As I say, because it's just so much easier to grip there between finger and thumb. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted that the crown on this one isn't perfect. As a review watch, this has come to me from other reviewers, and I think it's fairly safe to say that somebody's been a little bit heavy-handed re-screwing that in, which is a real shame. So guys, please try to respect the watches that these people send to us because they cost a lot of money. At a shade under 12 mils thick, it sits then on very manageable 43.6 mils north to south. Our model today is my nephew, a very large mush, who will no doubt be representing the United Kingdom in the next Olympic rowing teams very soon, so keep an eye out for him. As you can see, because of those specs, it sits under the shirt sleeves with ease. The head of the watch only weighs around 57 grams. It's almost petite weight and very comfortable on wrist. Personally, as regulars to the channel will be aware, I like a bigger wrist print, but I was categorically wrong with this one. Happy to be, to be proved that way. And primarily it's because, again, when I took it out of the box for that first time, I find that the dial aperture is much wider than expected. And that's what it does, is it allows the dial to have more of a dominant presence than the surrounding case body. You can see the lugs and the bezel essentially are second place, or take second place. And again, the other advantage of that is that, okay, not only does the size fit well, etc., but that big open dial allows that sandy aperture just to pop through exactly as you would want it to. As I say, the case body is there and viewed from the side, etc. And it's nice to look at. I mean, absolutely nothing to say bad about that. But as I say, the thing that the specs with the lugs, etc., what they've done, allowing that dial that additional real estate of the watch, I think it's a brilliant touch. Notice, of course, that these come with 150 meters worth of watery goodness, thus allowing for much wider use. I think that, again, is a really nice, small, subtle touch, because they could have easily left this at 50 meters watery goodness, as many other watch brands do, and just moved on from there. But by giving it that extra, I think, yeah, as I say, it just allows that additional utility. From your Solita SW200, you're going to get around that 38-hour power reserve. You've got that standard Chris Ward custom rotor at the back. It's not blingy, it's just subtle. Again, personally, if it was me, I would have designed it without the see-through, because again, that just shaves that bottom mill off the bulbous butt there, and just allow it to sit even flusher on wrist. But again, I guess if you really wanted to, I haven't seen anybody offering custom case backs for these which are plain and flat. I know a lot of Seikos and other brands have them, Orients as well, I've seen, but not for these. So again, if I'm wrong there, guys, do give me a shout. When I first opened the box, one of the key standouts for me was actually the length of the minute hand and the length of the seconds hand. The minute hand, as you can see there, reaches those minute markers, brilliantly. I mean, very smartly. And again, as you can see, they're just tricking around. The seconds hands does exactly the same thing, and obviously with a little lollipop there, just skirting the inside of the hour markers. Contrasting minute track as well, sitting outside those markers, and under, of course, as you can see, you will have seen the lump of crystal on top. It is a slab, but a very nicely rounded slab, as you can see there. Loom junkies will have their fetishes sated. It's blue, lovely old radium, baby, classy, and it is applied in very even dollops. Very impressed with the loomage here. Coming down to the 6, then we can see our date wheel. And notice, interestingly, again, depending on the light where you catch this, the date wheel is actually more color matched to the hour markers than it is to the main dial. And again, to me, it's a minor detail, but it's so fundamental to the symmetry and success of the dial design. I also like the slightly angular pear-shaped date window, again, because it just adds a little bit of flair. Very small details there, and to as it sits above that 6 o'clock marker. Now, I have to say, I wonder if they actually hadn't considered leaving that sliver of 6 marker off. I know some leave it on when it's at the 3 o'clock, etc. But I mean, do we need it there? I don't know. Let me know what you think, guys. And yes, of course, for the haters, I am afraid I am an ardent fan of the Trident counterbalance on that seconds hand. For me, it is synonymous with the brand. I think it looks good, and I truly hope that Chris Ward don't bend to please the keyboard klutzes and replace it with something else. I mean, on this particular watch, for example, I think that the Trident actually provides that necessary contrast on the dial to those desert shades, and the steel balances well with the all-steel twin flag logo. So say you've got, as I say, just that little bit of extra shadow shade as it moves around there. I think, yeah, brilliant. The dial color palette, I think, is also quite a clever choice, as in certain lights, as you can see here, the hour markers stand out very much, whereas from other angles, it's very difficult. I'll try and pop some outside shots of this. The colors actually blend in. They sort of disappear a little bit more, and then you only see them because of the shadow around the framing that they have. Again, just quite nice touches, Again, really appreciate them. The bezel is there. It can be viewed from top down. It's squat and the right size. It's certainly not too swollen. But then when viewed from the side, that boxy sapphire up top, as I mentioned before, just takes over with its wobblicious light show. It kind of has me reaching for my 1970s polo necks and, yes, those ubiquitous driving gloves. Lovely. I also think that due to the color options and case specs across the whole range, these watches are going to be absolute strap monsters. There's going to be so many straps that you could throw this on: leather, suede, NATO, steels, all sorts. Note though that you don't have drilled lugs on these, but the strap it's been sent with, as you can see there, has got the quick release. As well, you can see there that whoever's had this before has been a little heavy-handed on this, or given it a good wearing as part of their review. I think the colour though that they've chosen for this tan, again, it's absolutely ideal. But do note, as you can see as I'm holding it here in my hand, that the leather on this is really quite stiff. Let me just throw it on wrist very quickly because there's something else I wanted to show, and that as a consequence of it being so stiff, what it does do is it pushes the watch. It pushes it up because the head is so light. It pushes the watch head up a little bit. Again, I think somebody has worn this on their wrist, and as a consequence, it's formed a little bit to that. And my wrist is a little bit wider, and it's So I'm hoping that would soften up over time. Other minor detail is that then we've got a brush buckle with a little signage on there as well. I think Chris Ward, when you're buying these things, give you a huge choice as to what you pick with it. I'm not sure about what discounts they offer should you want to choose multiple at purchase. But again, if you know that, give me a shout. So within the range, as I said before, the addition of the bronze version, the bronze case body, has been much applauded. I'm not totally convinced, and probably one of the reasons for that is that I'm not overly keen on gold watches. I just find them too blingy. But maybe on wrist, that bronze and my perception would change. And then one of the things that I noted as well was a slightly left field addition to the range was the limited edition GMT variant. It's a very curious curveball to the collection, and yes, it's sold out in seconds. So again, I think people saw that and went, go on then. So anything wrong with the watch? Well, within the Chris Ward quiver of watch designs, I find that this one sits quite close to several other designs, so it isn't that easy necessarily to differentiate from among them, which again I think is why the white sand dial of this one stands out the best. These come in at £750, and that's a bit spendy to me. If this was around 500, then I'm in. But it does mean then that I'd probably need to save up for another 6 months. I think also then it sits in a very competitive range within the watch sector, sitting next to Hamilton's, Smith's Everests, possibly Seiko Baby Alpinists, etc. So as I mentioned before, it's a tough segment. And so especially if you're new to the watch world, you would probably be leaning towards one of those bigger brands. So I think Chris Ward are punching high here. But my experience of the Chris Wards is that they certainly back that up with build quality, design quality, and as I say, lots of little details on here that make this a very interesting watch. And as I say, I threw it on wrist and it's like, man, that looks damn good. As always, that's my view. Over to you guys. What do you reckon of these particular Dunage ones? Drop us a comment down below. And of course, if you're fond of sun dunes and salty air, thanks as always for your time and your view. Catch you all in the next watch vid. Thanks.